Welcome to WeTube. I am Nitesh Verma. I work as a business strategy consultant primarily for startups and SMBs, and we often talk about business strategy, corporate strategy, marketing strategy. And while the Mahabharata is in news these days, it's a second outing on television. We have the animated movie where the who's who of Indian cinema have given their voices to all the immortal characters. We thought, why not talk about what business and corporate strategies can be imbibed from the great Indian epic? And that's where we have today's lecture, which is winning strategies from the Mahabharata. Now, Mahabharata, along with the Ramayana, is one of the two great ancient Sanskrit epics from India. Mahabharata, in fact, is the world's longest epic poem. The longest version of the Mahabharata, it has many versions. They say it was recited thrice. The first time the Rishi Vyas recited it to the Lord Ganesha. So the longest version of the Mahabharata has about 1.8 million words and 100,000 shlokas. Now each shlok is a couplet, that is two individual verse lines make one shlok. So Mahabharata is the longest epic poem in the world. The longest version has about 1.8 million words and 100,000 shlokas. It was written around 3000 BC, and Mahabharata, along with philosophy, politics, warfare, had some very interesting revelations. Mahabharata talked about astronomy. It had the existence of planets like the Uranus and the Neptune. Mahabharata had reference to lands as far as Cambodia, Kazakhstan and Scandinavia. So geography was an integral part as well. Mahabharata had mathematics. They talked about numbers raised to the powers of 16 and minus 16. So we know how advanced they were in terms of statistics and mathematics. Mahabharata also described weapons which we can relate to modern day weaponry. So it had references to nuclear and chemical warfare. Remember the Kauravas plotting against Pandavas using the chemical warfare. Mahabharata also had complex military formations and strategies. Who could forget the Chakravyuh that they had created and the 16-year-old Abhimanyu who risked his life to break the Chakravyuh. Mahabharata talked about philosophy, psychology, sociology, spirituality, religion and politics. It also had event management lessons. So while the great Indian epic talked about a lot of topics, a lot of knowledge, what does it had in store for us in terms of business and corporate strategy? What could we learn from Mahabharata in terms of management lessons? What winning strategies or winning mantras could business owners imbibe from this great Indian epic? And that is what we are going to discuss today. But before that, let's look at the two different camps, the Kauravas versus the Pandavas, who were engaged in this interesting and one of the most famous wars of all time. So let's look at Kauravas versus the Pandavas. Now let's look at the logistics used in the war. The Kauravas had 11 Akshauhini compared to the Pandavas, who had 7. Now each Akshauhini had 21,870 chariots, equal number of elephants, thrice the number of horses, which was 65,610, and 109,350 foot soldiers. So here also they had a strategy. There was a defined ratio for each division, which they called Akshauhini. 1:1:3:5. So the number of foot soldiers was always 5 times that the number of chariots or the elephants. So even by this regard, the Kauravas were much better placed when compared to the Pandavas. Let's look at the generals. The Kauravas had the mighty Bhishma, Dronacharya, the guru of all the Pandavas and the Kauravas. They had Karna, Shalya, Kripacharya, Ashwathama and Duryodhan. Compared with the Pandavas had the two brothers Arjun, Bhim. They had Drashadyumna, Abhimanyu, Ghatotkacha, Shikandi and Satyaki. Now look at the Pandavas. The Pandavas were exiled for 13 years after they lost the game of dice from Duryodhan and Shakuni. They had no kingdom of their own. Indraprastha was taken over by the Kauravas, and their main strength, both in terms of political and financial powers, depended on their friends and relatives. The Panchalas, the Yadavas, the Magadhas and the Cheris. So in all, the Pandavas did not have any of their own kingdom, no wealth and no power. So let's now look at the Kauravas. Compared to the Pandavas, the Kauravas had been in power for 13 years, ever since the Pandavas were sent on exile. Duryodhan had been a benevolent king, so the subjects, the people, did not really miss the Pandavas. So definitely we did not have any reasons for anyone to go against the rulers, that is the Kauravas. Not only had they the wealth and power of Hastinapur, the Kauravas also had that of Indraprastha, the kingdom that the Pandavas had taken such labors to build and which had surpassed the Hastinapur of old times. And again, Karna had gone on a nationwide conquering on behalf of Duryodhan, so he had multiplied the might of the Hastinapur regime. So they were the national sovereigns. So even by this regards, the Kauravas were much better placed compared to the Pandavas to win the war of Kurukshetra. Now what was the motivation of both the parties to go to the war? Now Duryodhan famously said that without war will not concede even a needle prick of earth. That makes his motivation and his point of view very clear. Compare that with Yudhishthir. Yudhishthir said, we fight over a kingdom as dogs over a piece of meat, which means Yudhishthir and Pandavas wanted to avoid the war even after they had come back from 13 years of exile after all those hardships. So Duryodhan was completely focused on the war. It was his moment of truth. He had usurped a kingdom, that was Indraprastha, and he meant to keep it along with Hastinapur. He had resorted to all means, foul or fair, to get the kingdom which he believed to be rightfully his, and he was in no mood to give it up. That's why he said, without war will not concede even a needle prick of earth. On the other hand, the Pandavas had been humiliated while they played the game of dice. Their wife was insulted, the kingdom was taken, but still they wanted to avoid the war. The three elder Pandavas were against the war. They even went as far as making an offer that they will stop the war in exchange of 5 villages. So they did not demand the kingdom, they did not want Indraprastha back, or they did not want a share from Hastinapur. All they wanted to avoid the war was just 5 villages. So what was the result of the war? As we all know, the war lasted 18 days. The generals, Bhishma led it for 10 days, Dronacharya for 3 days, Karna for 1.5 days, and so on. On the 18th night of the war, Ashwathama slaughtered the Pandava camp while they were in sleep. The major casualties for Kauravas were Bhishma, Dronacharya, Karna and his sons, Shalya, Susharma, Jayadratha, Dushasan, and all of Duryodhan's brothers, Shakuni and Uluka. Whereas the Pandavas lost Drupad, they lost Virat and his sons, they lost Abhimanyu, Ghatotkacha and Iravan. Abhimanyu, Ghatotkacha and Iravan were the Pandav sons. So irrespite of the Kauravas being better placed in terms of power, in terms of the army, they had 11 regiments, the Pandavas only had 7. The Kauravas were in power for 13 years. Karna had multiplied their strength by winning other kingdoms. But how did the Pandavas manage to win the war? So what did Pandavas do differently that irrespite of all the negatives, they still managed to win the great war of Kurukshetra? So let's look at the strategies adopted by both the Kauravas and the Pandavas and what were the winning strategies. So if we first look at the preparation of both the Kauravas and the Pandavas for the war. Now Kauravas, Karna, as we said, went on a countrywide military mission. He subdued the different kingdoms and kings and acquired more wealth. But what was the result? It meant a loss in terms of both men and money, and it also created new enemies for the Hastinapur regime. Now the Pandavas, though they were in exile for 13 years, they turned their attention to improving over their weaknesses. Arjun set out on a mission to acquire Divyastra. Now Divyastra played a very important role in the end result of the war. Bhim met his brother Hanuman and got a blessing of enhanced strength, which eventually helped him defeat Duryodhan. Yudhishthira acquired teachings from the various wise rishis, and he also learnt the game of dice from Gandharva Chitrasen, lest he was challenged to yet another dice game. So it's said that he had become undefeatable in dice. That is how the Pandavas prepared to win against the Kauravas. So what is the winning strategy here? Turn your weaknesses into your strengths. This is equally important in terms of business, in terms of corporate strategy. Let's move on to allies. Who are the allies of the Kauravas and the Pandavas, and how well they were placed in terms of their partners? Now Kauravas managed a centralized power system, one head for the entire regime. The greatest empire of all time but not many powerful allies except from old relations from far off places like Shakuni from Gandhar, Jayadrat from Sindhu and Bhagadut from Cambodia, which was called Cambodia. Compare it with the Pandavas. The Pandavas had no wealth and no power of their own, but powerful allies all over India. Most of these allies happened through marriage of each Pandav brothers to the other princesses or daughters of kings. So Panchal through marriage with Draupadi, Dwarka through marriage of Arjuna and Subhadra, Magad through marriage of Sahadev and Vijaya, Chedi through marriage of Nakul and Karnai, and so on. Even the Nagas through marriage of Arjuna and Ulupi. So they had allies from different strata of the society. So what's the winning strategy here? Make powerful allies. Now let's look at the leadership. As we all know, leadership is important for all aspects, be it sports, be it business. What was the leadership here for the war? The Kauravas, as we discussed, had a centralized leadership, one head of army at a time, who had supreme authority of 11 Akshahuni of army, that is 11 divisions of the army. We already saw the number of foot soldiers, the number of horses, chariots, elephants in each division. So one general was given the authority to command the entire 11 divisions. Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Shalya and Ashwatthama, each at one at a time, were the supreme head of the entire Kaurav army. Now the Pandavas, on the other hand, had a distributed leadership. They had delegated the responsibility to different people. 7 commanders for the 7 divisions. So one man command for one Akshahuni. This made them manage each army division better than compared to the Kauravas. So who were the generals? Virat, Drupad, Sahadev, Drashtaketu, Satyaki and Shikhandi. Apart from that, Drashtadyumna was the commander-in-chief, Arjun was the supreme commander, and the almighty Krishna was not only his charioteer but the counselor for the Pandavas. So the winning strategy here was delegate and share your responsibility. Make it easier for the team to access the commanders and to listen to the leaders. Next we come to teamwork. So while we all know the importance of teamwork, let's see how well both the camps were placed with this regard. Kauravas, they had no team spirit. They all fought their individual wars. Bhishma, for his vow to protect the throne of Hastinapur, he was against the war. He was against going to war with the Pandavas. But the reason was because he had taken a vow to protect the throne of Hastinapur. So while he was against the entire idea of the war, he had to enter the war just because he had taken a vow at some point of time. Again, Dronacharya and Kripacharya, the 2 gurus, they owed allegiance to the throne. They were employees and it was their duty to enter the war, not because they wanted, but it was their duty. Shalya was cheated by Duryodhana to be there. He was originally a Pandav ally. So again, Shalya was not 100% committed to enter the war from or on the behalf of the Kauravas. Karna, to prove his mantle against Arjuna. Friendship for Duryodhana. And all of these did not gel well with each other. Bhishma and Karna did not gel well. Bhishma and Shakuni did not gel well. Same did Karna and Shakuni and Karna and Shalya. Shalya even went on humiliating Karna while the war was going on. And again, even Shalya and Bhishma did not gel well together. So we see there were differences amongst the entire group, which is never good for the results of the team. The Pandavas, on the other hand, were one team and they had one goal. As men, all of them, the allies, the Pandavas, the soldiers, they had huge respect for Krishna and Yudhishthir, while as warriors, they were in complete awe of Bhim and Arjuna, the supreme warriors. Most of them were close relatives, cousins, brother-in-laws, father-in-laws. As we discussed, most of the allies of the Pandavas were through marriage of the Pandav brothers to other princesses. Now more than that, they all were part of the decision-making process. So the war for Pandavas was their common war, compared with the Kauravas, who had all had their individual goals, and most of the major generals had no commitment to the war. The winning strategy here thus is teamwork succeeds where individual efforts fail. So now let's come to the motives for the war, the individual motives. Look at the Kauravas. Except for Duryodhan, nobody really wanted the war. All the four main generals had strong ties with the Pandavas. Bhishma was the Pandavas were the grandchildren for Bhishma. Now Bhishma said, I won't kill the Pandavas, will kill 1,000 soldiers each day. Now Drona, he was the teacher for the Pandavas as well as the Kauravas. He said, I won't kill the Pandavas, will capture them only. Shalya, he was Nakul and Sahadev's maternal uncle. He loved the Pandavas and he helped them by humiliating Karna during the war. Karna, he was the brother to the Pandavas, the eldest of them all, and he has promised Kunti that he would not kill any of the other Pandavas except Arjun. So in all, the Kauravas had a team of traitors. They all went to war, but they had strong ties with the Pandavas, and most of them did not want to harm the 5 Pandav brothers. Look at the Pandavas. The Pandavas, as we said, had one common goal. They also had individual targets. Each individual has his own agenda, which just became one with the entire team's agenda and goal. Drashtadyumna wanted to take revenge from Dronacharya, Shikandi from Bhishma, Satyaki from Bhurisravas, Arjun from Karna, Bhim from Duryodhan and his brothers, Sahadev from Shakuni and his sons, and Nakul from Karna's sons. So the strategy that we had here as a winning strategy, the right team is made by selecting the right individuals. Get the right man for the right job. Let's look at the commitment to the war, the commitment of both the Kauravas and the Pandavas. The Kauravas, as we already said, the big four, Bhishma, Dronacharya, Karna, Shalya, they had emotional attachments with the 5 Pandavas. So let's look further on their commitment to the war. Bhishma himself gave away the secret of killing him to the Pandavas. He prolonged the war by killing only inconsequential soldiers. He did not fight a warrior like Shikandi because of his personal bias. Dronacharya. Drona too indirectly gave away his secret by saying that he was invulnerable as long as he held a weapon. Nobody could kill him till he had a weapon in his hands. And moreover, Dronacharya abandoned weapons as soon as he knew that his son Ashwathama had died. This was a lie, a twisted truth that Yudhishthira used to make Dronacharya abandon his weapons, because he himself had gave away the secret as to how could the Pandavas kill Dronacharya. The Karna did not kill Yudhishthira and Bhim when he got the chance, because he had promised Kunti that he would not kill any of the Pandav brothers except Arjuna. He gave away his kavach and kundal that protected him prior to the war. He also fled innumerous times from the war when he was hurt, which shows his poor commitment to the war. He didn't save Dusasan when Bhim was killing him. And Shalya kept on insulting Karna while in battle during the entire war. The Pandavas. Abhimanyu, he was a 16-year-old kid, but he ventured beyond enemy lines alone when Arjun was not present to break the Chakravyuh. This was a suicide mission, but he still went in and took a great part of the army down with him. It took the combined effort of 7 generals to take the 16-year-old kid down. Ghatotkacha, Bhim's son, even in death, took with him almost half the Kaurav army. Yudhishthira, he knew he couldn't face Karna in war. Karna was a better warrior, but still Yudhishthira went in to set an example for his army. Yudhishthira did not hesitate to tell a lie or twisted truth when faced with the decision of whether to stick with his own personal integrity and principles or look at the welfare of the team. He used a twisted truth to tell Dronacharya that his son Ashwathama had died, and that made Dronacharya abandon his weapons and the Pandavas could kill him. Krishna, though he had promised that he would not enter the war and he would only be Arjuna's charioteer, he took up arms twice and almost entered the war in spite of his promise. only to be stopped by Arjuna. Now compare the commitments of Abhimanyu, Ghatotkacha, Yudhishthir and Krishna with that of Bhishma or Dronacharya or Karna or Shalya, and you could see a difference, and that's the winning strategy. The interests of the individual should never exceed the team's interest. The best man for the job is not the one with the best capabilities, but the one with the greatest commitment. Commitment scores over capabilities and competency. Let's look at the management strategy. Krishna was known as the greatest crisis manager. He made Arjuna believe that he can fight the Kauravas and that is a just war. Arjuna at the start of the war did not want to participate in the war, and that was the origination of the Bhagavad Gita. Yudhishthir was a low-key strategist. What did he do? On the first day of the war, he played a master game, went over to the enemy side to seek blessings from the elders. Doing so, he made a deal with them wherein all of them agreed to help him and unfolded the secrets of defeating them. Bhishma mentioned he could not find Shikandi or any woman. Dronacharya gave away his secret, and that helped the Pandavas win the war. While coming back, Yudhishthir took a calculated risk. He made an offer to all the assembled people to change sides if they wanted to. He knew well of the lack of cohesiveness among the Kauravas. They were never one team. So Yuyutsu, son of Dhritarashtra, crossed over to the Pandavas. Now that exposed the weakness of the Kauravas for all to see. So what's the winning strategy here? Know your enemy's weaknesses and exploit them, while you convert your own weaknesses into your strengths, as the Pandavas did while preparing for the war. It's equally important to know your enemy's weaknesses and exploit them. Take calculated risks, and also inspire and counsel your team when they most need you as a leader. Now let's look at the roots. What was their upbringing? What was their background? Kauravas, they were all princes, brought up in the comfort of the royal palace of Hastinapur. They were matured on romanticized ideals of power, fame and courage. They all brought up on the tales that were told to them by Bhishma, Dhritarashtra, Drupad or Kripacharya. They never experienced what is the ground reality. Now the Pandavas were in total contrast to the Kauravas. They spent the greater part of their lives in poverty. Childhood in the Himalayan foothills among the rishis, 1 year exile among the poor people of Kuru and Panchal, and 12 years of Vanvas with 1 year of Agyatwas. Experienced with the ground reality, they had contact with people from various strata of the society: sannyasis, the celibate monks, acharyas, householders and teachers, poor Brahmins, and the lower caste potters. Different races of people. They had Rakshasas, Gandharvas, Apsaras and Nagas, people from different regions, Uttakuru and Bengal. They had a sense of sharing, they had a sense of brotherhood. So what's the winning strategy here? Know ground realities, know different ideologies and share. That makes you more wise and prepared for the crisis. Now let's look at women empowerment, a very powerful principle. And how were the Kauravas placed? The Kauravas followed a patriarchal culture. Bhishma, Dronacharya, Kripacharya, Dhritarashtra, Vidur, Shakuni, Duryodhan, Karna and Dushasan. There was no woman in the decision-making process. Gandhari, the wife of Dhritarashtra and the mother to the Kauravas, had retreated to the inner chambers. Nobody listened to her. So these Kauravas followed a patriarchal culture. Compare that with the Pandavas. Pandavas had a matriarchal culture. Kunti was the supreme authority for the Pandavas. Whatever my mother says is dharma to me. That is what Yudhishthir said. This is in complete contrast with the principles and the policies that the Kauravas followed. Now Draupadi was a companion in whatever the Pandavas did. She had a big role in all the decision making, and without her the Pandavas would have most probably reclined to the forests. Once they came back from the Vanvas and the Agyatwas, 13 years of exile, and once their request or the demand for 5 villages to avoid the war was declined, they would have reclined back to the forests. But it was Draupadi who motivated them, who inspired them. Even the younger Pandavas, Ghatotkacha, Abhimanyu and Iravan, they were brought up by their mothers. So the female influence was huge. Again, complete contrast with what the Kauravas were used to. So what's the winning strategy? As we all know, women are the better half. Any team which doesn't have women is unbalanced. For the masculine traits of aggression and dominance should be balanced by the feminine traits of harmony and sustenance. So now let's look at the recap. Let's recap all the winning strategies that we could imbibe from the ancient epic of Mahabharata. What does Mahabharata teach us in terms of business and corporate strategy? In management lesson, what are the winning strategies? Turn your weaknesses into strengths. The way Pandavas prepared themselves for the war. The most important being how Yudhishthir learnt the game of dice from Chitrasen, and he became, as said, undefeatable in the game of dice. Just in case they were again invited for a second game of dice, he wanted to be sure that this time Shakuni and Duryodhan cannot defeat them. Arjuna went over and acquired Divyastras. Bhim met Hanuman and got more strength, more power. So turn your weaknesses into strengths if you want to be a successful business owner. Turn enemies into allies. While Kauravas created more enemies by sending Karna to acquire more land and more kingdoms, Pandavas made strong allies from all over India. Share your responsibilities. Kauravas had one head for the entire army, whereas Pandavas identified who were the important generals, who were the competent generals, and they gave them one regiment and one army division each. So better management and better delegation, they shared their important responsibilities. Teamwork. Teamwork scores over individual efforts. Kauravas were a team of traitors. Bhishma, Dronacharya, Kripacharya, even Karna, the friend of Duryodhan, had promised Kunti that he won't kill the Pandavas. So they were a team of traitors, while as Pandavas were one team and one common agenda. Right team is the right set of individuals, the right man for the right job, which, in spite of all their might, all that wealth and all the power, the Kauravas never really had. They never really had the right men for the right job, which made a difference in the result of the war. Commitment scores over competence. Once again, the Kauravas lacked commitment. Except Duryodhan, no other major general or no other important warrior was committed 100% to the war. They all had ties with the Pandavas. They did not want to kill the Pandavas. So commitment scores over competence. Team interests over individual interests. You need to place the interests of the team above your own interests. Bhishma did not do that. He did not kill Shikhandi because he had a promise he won't use arms against women. Karna did not kill Bhim. He did not kill Yudhishthir because he had promised his mother that he would not kill any of the Pandav brothers except Arjun. Whereas Yudhishthir went on to use twisted truths, even said lies in interest of the team's agenda. Krishna, in spite of his promise not to enter the war, picked up arms twice. So team interests should always precede individual interests. Know your enemy and the challenges. Exploit its weaknesses and take calculated risks. Exactly what Yudhishthir did and made Yuyutsu cross over to the Pandavas' side. He made Dronacharya and Bhishma give away the secrets to defeat them and to kill them. So even before the war started, he had prepared for the war by exploiting the enemy's weaknesses. The right managers to inspire, to invigorate, counsel in crisis. Pandavas were blessed with Krishna and Yudhishthir, the two low-key strategists. No ground realities, accept different ideologies and cooperate. While Kauravas spent their entire life in Hastinapur, the Pandavas in the childhood lived in the Himalayan foothills. They were in exile for 13 years, came in contact with the Rakshasas, the Gandharvas, the Nagas and the Apsaras, the potters and rishis. So they were more wise, they had more knowledge and more wisdom. And again, the last but the most important, empower women. The gender balance is required for stability and administration. So along with lessons in politics, lessons in warfare, mathematics, astronomy, Mahabharata as an ancient epic gives us these winning business and corporate strategies which once followed will help you in your business management and making strategies for your business team. So that's all we have today from Mahabharata. Thank you very much.